so you have to, for social distancing, it's smaller number of service. And we have to get on the kids. We're not licensed. It's not a licensed childcare facility. So we have to also get it approved. So this is correct. I gave her a number of probably somewhere around 15, 12 to 15 that we can have there.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. In my mind, I'm thinking they're getting tutored, you're testing people. What's the difference between doing that on Main Street or exposing 15 kids to COVID? So thank you for that. You know, I think we need to be a part of the solution, and First and Main to me is fine. If we have an alternative opportunity at the community center, I would support that, just so that it does create more privacy. But I also think we need to be making our decisions based in scientific fact and the evidence that we have, and not in fear. And I also think that on the privacy side, you know, we need to be destigmatizing testing so that more people will go, people will use it. If you have been tested, there's very little privacy, I believe, as is today. So I don't see that being dramatically different. But if there is an opportunity to do this at the community center, I would support that too. So.
Thanks, Jesse. Andy Aronson.
Yep. You know, my initial reaction was yes, 100 times yes. And I think that the critical element, I'm agreeing primarily with Jesse that we need to come out of this conversation with a yes. Vail Health, come into our town and do lots of testing. If the best place, and this is workshop, so we're sending you out with, I think, our suggested guidance, not a vote. But I think that's my position, is get them here fast, and let's get testing. We're not opening up a methadone clinic where there's anything embarrassing. We want to be encouraging people to get tests. We want to be, you know, encouraging people to participate in this solution. So whatever we can do as a town to provide them access, I don't care if we make a deal with 10 Mile Music Hall, but let's get more testing. Let's look at our town as a source of solution.
Great, thanks, Andy. And I'm with Andy. For me, it's around timing, immediacy, and the last thing I want to do is affect, even if it's 5 children, they've been affected enough. And I think this is something we need right now to happen, and have these tests happening, and to go through steps where we need to recertify other venues, look at contracts, readdress things. I think First and Main makes the most sense. My biggest fear right now is all of the money we've spent. If we don't do this now and we don't have a facility, we don't have a Main Street for people to go to, because it will be shut down again. And so then it won't matter where people are parking and what they'll be doing. So for me, I'm fine if we continue to work on ideas and other potential opportunities, but I think we need to get this happening as soon as possible so that we don't get shut down and we have a Main Street open and we have our ski areas open. I think that we'll continue to our later conversation, but I think I see no problems with the safety there. Already, everybody who's getting tested now drives by everybody walking to the middle school and going to the middle school. I think there's no difference there than on Main Street. I think the safety of being in your car is better. The cheek swab is quick. I just don't see any issue, or as Jesse said, the stigma around it. We need to say, we're taking this seriously, and it's okay to get tested, because you're doing it for the safety and the betterment of the entire community. And that's what's most important right now, is not hiding or being scared of being sick. And I think that's a big issue. Dan, I saw you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'd like to as well.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, a couple of those points, you know, I think community, before, you know, we identify the hurdles to relocate being as insurmountable, I'd like to kind of quantify the challenge to some degree. You know, how difficult will it be? How long will it take? You know, if reasonably we can move forward with the community center, I just think it's easier to cross streets there. I think it's just more convenient, aside from, to whatever degree you represent, you know, privacy issues or contagion issues. I don't see that as being the problem. I just think that's a better location logistically from a traffic standpoint. But again, I support either location. I think the community center is a little bit better for some of those reasons. in that regard. Main Street, there's going to be a lot of traffic coming down there and people looking to park and circling around. I think you go with where there's more parking. And I think there's a little bit more there. It's just a little bit more accessible. But those were kind of my thoughts with regards to the community center. But I would want to hear from Nancy a little bit more about exactly what that time horizon looks like to accomplish those things, to affect that change. And then Hunter, if that window was unacceptable, then certainly you got to go with what's available in that degree. But I want to understand what that challenge is first in terms of a time horizon.
I'd echo that, and let's better understand this, and let's be clear. We are not being, the need is urgent, but we shouldn't rush into making a decision within 2 days, if there is a reasonable step to consider another alternative. And, from a logistical standpoint, the community center is far better. And I don't think it's about the stigma. I think, everybody in our community understands the importance of testing. What it does subconsciously create is a medical environment on our main street. And so that is something that is going to affect people when they drive into Frisco. I can't imagine other charming, quaint main streets with a testing center immediately as you welcoming you to their business district. So before we throw in the towel on this and decide that it's First and Main, I have heard at least 4 of you saying that you support considering an alternative. And so I'd like to fully vet this, Hunter, if you don't mind.
No, I don't. And I agree with your, your tally and everything. I just think, I think we'll have to disagree on what this looks like. I don't think we're opening up a medical facility. It's going to be somebody in scrubs walking out to a car, doing a cheap swab, and walking back into First and Main. To me, that's not going to be something
disagree.
people see while driving down the road, and it's not going to be a tarnish on the reputation of our Main Street.
I mean, with due respect, if you got the test outside of the middle school, there's tents set up, there's processing in the tents and with the windows. I mean, it's not like a shop front with people just casually walking outside. And I disagree. They had you go all the way around back. There's a very somewhat private. Of course, if you bumped into your neighbor or something, they're going to see you there. But you don't have a street. There wasn't a stream of cars going by you. So I think we really need to be thoughtful about this. It's not to be taken lightly to have a testing center on our main street.
Andy Aronson, go ahead.
I at least want to point out that our welcome mat now reads "Put on your mask." So we are full on board with, what we can do to keep people healthy, and there's nothing we can do more than keeping people healthy than testing. And I would disagree that most people, or that everyone agrees that testing is good. That sadly is not the case. So I'm hugely in favor of normalizing testing. So, but again, my point is, as quick as we can get Vail Health into our community doing tests, that's what I want to do. So and that's why I'm kind of pushing it back to staff to say whatever it takes to get them in quick. If we're making a First and Main community center, doesn't matter. I want Vail Health in here doing more testing. And
I do know that was Dan's question to Nancy. So Nancy, I'll let you jump in.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I understand all of the concerns and have tried to vet out alternatives, but it's not, we're not in the public health business, so I didn't call around the whole county. It's County Deputy Manager Sarah Vane's been handling that. So what outside of Frisco is available, I do not know. And other than the Kaiser building I asked her about, and other places up at Centura area and the county commons, that kind of thing. Regarding the community center, I think if you wanted to put Vail Health in there, we can get them in there. but getting the kids out and all the SOS out, the contract has to be terminated with no less than 30 days notice. So we could take it over and sort of kick them out, we'd be violating our contract. So we have to give them at least 30 days notice. And Diane has pulled up the contract. She might want to jump in on and saying anything else. And getting the
Are
kids.
they, sorry to interrupt, but are they actively working there? I mean, are there, so can you speak to that?
Yeah, and the kids are there. She know the schedule. The kids are there a few days a week. Diane, thank you for joining. Could you share with the council? So we can boot them, but we would be, we can't necessarily get them into First and Main. So go ahead and explain that, Diane.
So I guess starting first with the SOS contract, that contract automatically renews every May 1st every year, unless, as Nancy said, we give them a 30 days prior notice to terminating their contract. In terms of them being in the building currently, they are doing most of their work remotely at this point in time. They've indicated at different times they are in the building, but other times they are also working on a remote basis. So they are not actively doing programming within that building, but the space that they were utilizing is the office space within the SOS, the Third and Granite building. The other question in terms of the youth programs that are taking place currently at the Third and Granite building, we've got the Frisco Fun Club program that's operating every Wednesday. That's the 20 kids that are coming to the program. We're maxed because of the limit, the size of the building itself and social distancing guidelines. 20 kids every Wednesday. That program has been filling up. To move that over to First and Main, as Nancy said, we would have to work with our licensing specialist to license the First and Main building to make that happen. I don't know how long that would take. At times it is expedited, other times it's taken longer. So it could take anywhere from, a few weeks up to a couple months, and we don't even know if the building will even pass enough to make it so that it would pass licensing requirements. Third and Granite, sorry, go ahead.
No, thanks. I think that answers that. So, but if you wanted to put Vail Health in there, we can boot everyone out and deal with all that other stuff later. So there's advantages to both locations, and I think we can use either one. If I'm hearing you all want to have a yes, then I hear the yes. Between the two buildings, there is some impact by using the community center, but it's depends on your perspective what the impact is.
Thanks. Andy, help.
Yeah, thanks. I'm still pretty staunchly against First and Main for a COVID testing site. Shout out to Andy Aronson for, what you do with the Red Cross and all, but I do not want to make us look like a disaster area, because I have gotten a COVID test behind the middle school, and I'm sorry, in their stigma or no stigma or whatever, this is like an invasive looking thing, for people driving down Main Street. And then the other thing, like the community center, there is no booting these kids out or anything. This is a negotiation. We could go there and say, like, listen, we need to move this here. We need to move it quick. Can we get you guys to move over there? You're barely using the building. Let's work together. We'll lower your rent, whatever. I find it really hard to believe that the potential for putting 10 or 15 kids in one building is going to be less of a logistical legal issue than a medical facility COVID testing site. That seems, these are two pretty heavy things, right? So I still don't think the Main Street location anywhere else, that's what I say.
Thanks, Andy. So I think not to rush it, but I think I'm seeing Rick was good with First and Main. Jesse seemed good with it, with the alternative look at other options as we move forward. I'm with Andy Aronson on let's get testing started now, and if we can adjust down the road, let's adjust down the road when options are feasible and doable. And then Melissa, Andy, and Dan are pretty adamantly against it. So I think we're leaning towards the majority saying, let's get things up and rolling and look at other opportunities, so we can kind of be flexible. Is that I mean, I know, Andy, you've made it clear you're absolutely against it. Melissa, you're absolutely against it. I think Dan wants testing soon, goes back to his, wanted the community center in April, and now we're getting to it in October. But I think we need the testing now, and it seems like we're mostly in favor of it, but I know this is a very controversial, and there's obviously passions around this one. Andy Aronson, go ahead. And then Melissa.
If we ask staff to make every effort to use the community center, but it's not going to reasonably happen in I don't know what the timeframes are here, but it's not going to happen in a reasonable amount of time, then First and Main seems to be the sense. And I know Melissa and Andy, that would not be where you want to be, but is that where the rest of us are?
Look, I'm not trying to, I mean, I am opposed to using First and Main. But I believe that to fully consider the alternative, we need Nancy's help putting together a bit of a timeline. I mean, and if this takes 2 extra days, we know Nancy gets things done. You know, that could really have a positive impact. So, you know, as Andy Held pointed out, these are two, I mean, that was a great point. You know, we're talking about putting a medical testing facility in a community building, one way or the other. Moving a tutoring service and fun club can't be, you know, it can't be any more complicated. So, you know, let's understand this before I'd be very disappointed if we immediately decide that it's First and Main tonight, because what I'm hearing is that everybody would support the community center with more information. And this has moved so quickly that we don't have that information. From a traffic standpoint, it hands down, it's a better location. The only issue is with tutoring children. And so we need to understand how quickly we could move them into another location. As it's been pointed out, they're not even in there every single day. And so we really need to understand that and see if that is an amenable impact or an acceptable impact. So, you know, this isn't something that we can just pick up and move. Once it's there, it's going to be there all winter long. So my opinion, I should say, I'm one of 7, is that we take a couple more days to understand this before we lock in on a decision.
Thanks, Melissa. Rick, and then Jesse.
As I'm listening, and those are very thought out discussions on both locations. But is there an opportunity down in the marina area as far as privacy, parking, out of the beaten track? Forgive me, but I don't know what winter operations looks like down there, where they do the rental of the name of the building is escaping me, but not the Island Grill. They need a warm building. And honestly, when we're talking about a testing center, it's a bunch of swabs and a cooler. So it doesn't get any more sophisticated than that. And then it gets mailed off to the lab. So just thinking while I'm listening.
Mayor, if I can respond.
Yeah, please.
Well, I think you're talking about the Lund House, and that's true. They said they don't need a lot of space. The problem with the Lund House is it's not facing any cars, so people have to get out of their car, come in, go out. Community center, First and Main, both base. It's very easy to see because there's not going to be like a phone you call in or something like that. So that's my.
Can I, Andy Held, just a second, but I mean, I think Rick is onto something if this is possible. And I think we can move those Jersey barriers and have a car come in the old boat launch ramp and park in front of the Lund House and be completely visible with just rearranging some Jersey barriers. So I mean, if I can summarize to try to get everybody's, we all agree we need testing. We all want to be a part of helping out. We all think that except for some complications, the community center might be the best place, maybe not the best timing or most expeditious way to make this happen. So maybe we see, Nancy, if you can get back to us with where can we start setting up, moving towards maybe preferably the Lund House, because I think I saw everybody's eyes light up with that if at all possible. And I would like to hear feedback soon. Are you getting feedback already?
There's construction, staging and work. I forgot about that with but Jeff can weigh in on that if you'd like him to. The marina really is not a great spot because of all these things going on. Well, you're right. They didn't want to use a tent because of snow and winter. So the tent operations are very different. Having an indoor building that's heated with a bathroom inside the building for the staff that works, both community center and First and Main. But I heard everyone agree with the community center, and First and Main is kind of like, yes, but last resort. That's what I've heard so far.
How do people feel? Go ahead, Jesse.
Sorry, I just had a thought. I'm just trying to think of where can these kids go? And it might get complicated just because we're at 25% occupancy at town hall, but the idea was kicked around that maybe we test at council chambers, which I didn't think was a good idea, but could the kids go into that space? And could we give them their own entrance? So then, somehow it's its own, closed in ecosystem and space so that they can have their own occupancy in there. I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways to get creative for expedite where that programming could go.
Yes, we kicked around that idea, Councilmember Burley, Mayor Pro Tem, early in the season when all this was going on. So there's some logistics that can be done. We have to have a couple extra staff because we'd split the group. So it's very likely if we used First and Main, we might split that 10 and 10 or something like that. So trying to help you with this thing, I totally hear 100%. Let's be a partner. We want to find a place. We want to do testing. I've heard consistent agreement about that. Not consistent on First and Main. Community center, it sounds like you'd all support that.
Yep, I think there's consensus and everybody supporting.
Okay. And the marina maybe, and the options for the kids coming into town hall. It's about getting them licensed in the building and all that. But county does that, so maybe we can negotiate
an
expedited review.
But I think if for me, if it's going to take 5 days to do one and 2 days to do another, we need to get testing soon. It's not a rash decision. It's not a rush. It's not a facility that's going to detriment. I think if we can set up in First and Main for 3 days while we're getting everything worked out in the community center, we need to have testing. If you guys haven't seen the letter the state sent to the county, if you haven't seen what's going on, we are teetering on the edge of something terrible happening again. And this will help us. With more tests we get, the more our numbers become realistic and the better we have chance of not closing and going back to stay at home. So the last thing I would do is delay any testing because we don't like the idea of a medical center of somebody in scrubs going with a cheek swab to a car and walking back inside because we're worried about the image. I think the image looks a lot worse if we are shut down. So, but Nancy, I think consensus is there. Let's see if we can get the community center, see what it'll take. Let's find a place for the extra kids. I think we can find that. Council chambers is great, but I don't want to miss a day of testing at the risk of what it might lead to, which would be far more catastrophic than an image issue for a short period of time, in my opinion. But does everybody agree? So moving forward with the community center, the best, and Nancy will get back to us if it's on a timeline of how bad it is. And if we have to reconvene for a special meeting to rehash this out, we can. But I think I heard that everybody's in favor of moving forward the best we can. Andy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 days, I think, makes no difference. I mean, we're in this world. We've been in this world. Things aren't changing at this point. We're not exploding as far as we know, to the point that 2 days is gonna change anything. So that's where I stand there.
Mayor and Council, we don't have to have a special meeting if I have clear direction. So I heard community center from what you're saying. Okay. And, but a full yes, full stop on yes, we want to be partners and help and provide a location. So if for some reason community center can't work, and I don't think can't is the right um, I don't think that's the right word. It can, but if it delayed it by a few weeks, I don't know that it would, because we have parents who are counting on the kids being there and so on, and getting licensed. I mean, we can work all these things out, but I wouldn't want to call a special meeting just to say, okay, it's going to take 30 days. It's going to take 2 weeks. We can use community center, but it's going to take a little bit. I can reach out to Vale Health and the county, Sarah Vane, and find out if they could use First and Main temporarily for while we're sorting out the community center. But as Councilmember Sherburne said, once you're in, it's not a little thing to get everything going the way they need. I'm not sure what. I have a yes.
Unless any of us know, I believe that's for Vale Health to tell us, as opposed to us to guess. How big or little of a deal is it to come in temporarily and have it properly sanitized and move to a different location if it matters? That's their call.
No, I met with them. So they could do, they could be in a temporary building, but what they needed from us are some rearranging there. We can do anything. I just need to be clear about if there's a yes, path to yes on every which way here. So
I think let's move towards the community center, and as soon as you can just keep us updated on timing,
okay.
would be best.
Okay.
So,
if you're not happy about it, we can always call a meeting. Okay.
and we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll see where we end up. So now I believe that we are going to all have to leave the meeting and come back. So let's
No, we don't have to. It's been fixed.
Oh, okay.
But if you want a break, yes, but we don't have to log off or anything.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and get into the regular agenda. Thanks, everybody. Good conversation. I appreciate everybody's honesty and openness, and that's what we need to be doing. Thank you. See you in a minute.
Hunter, I'm available if you need volunteers to evacuate. I think that's so cool.
They took that away from us. We can't do that anymore.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Who are your subjects then?
Each other. Not nearly as much fun.
You guys don't panic as well as the rest of us do.
No, nor is it's not intimidating to look at somebody who truly has no idea what you're about to do.
Hunter, when I was teaching ski school, I used to get to do that. I used to get to be a subject, and that was fun. I appreciate what you guys do.
It's super fun. And if you've never done it out of a gondola, it's even more intense because there's a moment of commitment where you've got to back out of it, and just like when you're sitting in a chair, it's totally different. So yeah.
Do you guys use that there's a little chair that it doesn't go anywhere, but you guys use that for evac practice, right?
Yeah, and in the wintertime, once we're up and running. Yep. Tell you what, though, it was pretty cold standing out there this morning.
Did you get to slide down the hill at all? Are you on skis?
No, it's still dirt. There's not that much snow up there yet. But last night, when we walked the dogs, the tubing hill here, how cold it was, it looked like the Northern Lights. It looked like there was like Aurora Borealis to the east because the way the crystals were catching the lights from Denver and the lights in town. I tried to take a picture. Of course, it didn't come out, but I really thought the Northern Lights were happening in Frisco, which we could add to our whole winter marketing campaign if we want.
Cool picture of the bird.
It might be quite the draw, right?
It might. You never know. Take that, Ice Castles. We recreated the Northern Lights. But the tubing hill, they've made some serious production of snow out there. Just driving home, it's looking good. Those cold nights have been awesome.
What is there's maybe I should ask later, but there's reference to ski and snowboard at the tubing hill?
Mm-hmm. We do ski lessons with Copper.
Where?
Down the north side of the Magic Carpet.
Skiers right from the top of the Magic Carpet.
That'd be Tubers right, Thad. Tubers right.
Oh, sorry. Tubers right.
Wait a minute, unless they're spun around and they're looking the other way. It's which one of the attendants you have at the top.
Tubers left, right, left, right, left, right.
All right.
I am back, but I am just finishing some dinner. So I'm going to sit here with the video off for another second.
That's fine. We're just waiting on Rick to come live again. And Dan, have you been able to hear us okay? Because your audio broke up a little bit one of those times you were talking. I just want to make sure you've been able to hear us.
Yeah, my internet connection is a little unstable. But
know how that goes.
Are you in Frisco? You must be in Frisco.
Oh,
All right. I see Rick is back. Jesse's having a bite of dinner offline, but is paying attention and available. So great. Thanks for that, everyone. On the work session topics, I'd like to move on to the consent agenda and perhaps a motion, please.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Been moved by Councilmember Aronson. Is there a second?
I had a question on it. I did forward it to Nancy. If you look at it, Hunter, it shows you and I at roll call as absent. And then it has us voting on multiple issues later on in the meeting. And I guess I never noticed it before, Deborah. So it's just a point of clarity. Can you fill us in on that?
So, yes, I can. If you also look into the minutes, you will see a notation that says that you joined the meeting at a specific time.
Cool, thanks. I just wasn't calculating.
It was at the time of the motion for the consent agenda.
That's what I thought, Thad, but yeah, thanks, guys.
No, good clarification. And it's been seconded by Andy Hill. It's been moved and seconded. Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Fallon,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Inken.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, and I missed one.
Sherburne, yes.
Sherburne, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new business and agenda item number 1. This is resolution 20-26, a resolution of the town of Frisco, Colorado, amending prior resolution 20-18 and 20-19 to extend the authorization for street closures and related activities, expenditures, and license agreements to allow for temporary use of Main Street by businesses. I'll now open the public hearing and turn it over to staff and Don Reimer. Welcome, Don.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So you probably remember way back 5 months ago, May 26th, Council adopted a resolution that authorized the town manager to, among other things, execute license agreements for the opening of Main Street for business use. It seems like a whole heck of a lot much longer ago. However, we can all agree that the promenade was a success beyond our imaginations. Our Public Works Department has obtained a grant from the Colorado Department of Transportation to create a bunch of parklets. So these are 10 by 10 sections. Jeff Goebel described them as Lego sections that we can put together in front of businesses for their use. Since the promenade has closed, we've had a number of businesses reach out and say, yeah, we'd love some of these parklets in order to continue to be able to use some Main Street space for expanded business use. And I think you've probably all seen that the first 19 of those sections have been deployed in front of a number of businesses, and Public Works is continuing to build the remaining 21 sections, and hopefully those will be ready to deploy soon once they're done plowing snow and doing all the other things that Public Works has to do. But in any event, the resolution 20-18 had an expiration date of November 1st, 2020. The key thing about that is, or the key idea behind that and allowing the town manager to execute these license agreements was to expedite this process rather than bringing each and every license agreement back to town council for their consideration. So staff is suggesting and recommending that we extend or amend and extend that resolution to authorize the town manager to execute these license agreements for the use of parklets in the town right of way. That extension would go through June 1st of 2021. So with that, staff does recommend that you approve resolution 20-26 to make that happen.
Thank you, Don. Is there any specific questions for Don at this time? I'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment? If so, you can use the raise your hand feature in the participant list or in the chat. We will unmute you and you are welcome to speak.
I'm not sure the raise hand feature is working because I don't see it. Just FYI.
Okay. Do we need to unmute everyone again?
Unmute themselves. Deborah, can you help us? Okay.
Everybody is unmuted, and the raise hand feature, I am told, works for guests. We don't see it as co-hosts.
Learning as we go. Seeing no public comment, then I will close public comment and back to council discussion. Makes sense to me. I think let's keep rolling with being flexible and making things happen on Main Street, and the parklets seem well taken so far. So if there's no council discussion, perhaps a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 20-26, a resolution of the Town of Frisco amending prior resolutions 20-18 and 20-19 to extend the authorization for street closures and related activities, expenditures, and license agreements to allow for the temporary use of Main Street by businesses.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sherburne. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Councilmember Fallon. It's been moved and seconded. Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Fallon, Dan, you're muted.
Yeah, I lost my screen for a minute. Yes.
Thank you. Held,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Mortensen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 2. This is resolution 20-27, a resolution of the Town of Frisco, Colorado, adopting the comprehensive vision and project implementation plan for the Frisco Adventure Park at the Peninsula Recreation Area. I'll now open this public hearing, turn over to staff, and welcome Diane. Thanks for joining us again.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's great to see you this evening. So before you is Resolution 20-27, adoption of this long-awaited comprehensive vision and project implementation plan for the Frisco Adventure Park at the Peninsula Recreation Area. The vision plan was presented to Town Council on September 22nd of this year. Council was very supportive of the plan, had some edits for staff and Lowe's design. Those edits were made, and the recommendation from Council was also to take it to Planning Commission. So staff took it to Planning Commission on October 15th. Planning Commission was also very supportive of the plan. Commissioner Andy Stabile really emphasized the importance of implementing the value-added elements of the plan. I know that all the elements were broken down into value-added, revenue generating, and then the whole plan. You've seen it all. And so we took that into consideration as well, as you know, and you will see that over time, those elements being recommended as we continue moving forward. They had additional questions. Those questions were very minor. They were included in the staff report and they were answered in the staff report as well. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions if you have any at this time.
So thank you, Diane. Any specific questions for Diane? Seeing none, I will open it up to public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment, please unmute yourself and welcome any public comments at this time. Seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment and back to council discussion. And if everybody's good with it, a motion. Andy Held and then Andy Aronson.
Yeah, sorry. We didn't agree on an amount on any sort of project or anything, correct?
Go ahead, Nancy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, okay. You can answer if you'd like.
What we did include in the 2021 budget was to include $210,000 as part of the budget for the PRA. That was for planning for the new the Village Center building. So just a planning exercise, some design work to start working on that building, as well as some money to be spent on the wedding arbor up top there. So we can start hosting some weddings up there. So that's the money that's been requested for 2021.
And the snow cat, but yeah.
This is a vision document, and so the next steps, which will take time, and it's intended to be implemented over the course of the next few years based on council's priorities at the time.
That answer your question? Great. Andy Aronson, go ahead.
It just two things. One, I was not able to attend the meeting when it went over, but it was obviously pretty heavy consensus to eliminate the summer tubing, which I would have at least engaged in we would have had a deeper conversation had I been there. But I have clarified it, and I just want to, I guess, confirm with Diane and Nancy that if there's a change of heart over the course of the life of this plan, a summer tubing hill can be implemented without, nothing that's in the plan precludes the summer tubing hill. It's just the sense of the group that's here today that you guys didn't want it there. So it's a decision that can still be made later. And the other one is, it's a really nice report. I mean, I'm very supportive of the report, and it's obviously been well done. What happens to it from here? Meaning, is it published and disseminated? What's going to happen to the thing we read in the package?
Well, Mayor and Council, first, I just want to commend Diane. She has led the effort on this along with, she delegated that to Lindsay Joyce, who's been the project manager. This was a yeoman's effort along with the Los Design team. So I'm glad you like the plan, a really huge, great amount of work on Diane and Lindsay and staff's part along with Los Design. So the worst thing you can do is not look at the plan again. Too often plans are left on shelves, and that is a waste of money and resources. The best thing to do with this plan is to constantly revisit it at strategic planning, budgeting, and implement it. This plan has a lot of meat in it, and it was a huge community undertaking with the advisory committee and staff, and you brought in experts and paid them good money to tell you, we've looked at this from an expert point of view, and we think these are the things you can implement to create the vision that you've set out. We've shown you the video, and now let's get it done. And so your next step as a council is to start saying, how much do you want to talk about it? Do we want to bring it in at a spring strategic planning session? Sure. And you want to pick from these efforts to start implementing? For example, you could say it's about 12 to 20 million to implement all of it. Let's go do it, bond it. I mean, that's the one measure, one path you could do. Or you could start taking it out in bite-sized chunks with purpose and with strategy to make sure you're doing the next thing that's going to generate money, preserve the location, and bring in the community. So all those things together, and the plan lays that out for you.
That help answer your question, Andy?
I was a little more nuts and bolts. Are we printing this thing and distributing a document, or is it just an online thing?
Yeah, it's just for sustainability purposes, we really don't print these kind of documents anymore. They go online and they're accessible to everyone in the whole world. So
We can have it online this week, as well as the video online. So pending your approval of it.
you should play the video again.
I can never play it. I'm horrible at this.
I saw Melissa, and then I think Jesse maybe was next. So Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I wanted to just say what a tremendous effort this was. And thank you to Diane and Lindsay and everybody that was involved. This is really a monumental effort. And we set out maybe 3 years ago at this point to have a collective vision for this area. And moving forward, as Nancy put it so well, purpose and strategy, so that future councils can really understand what the community vision for this area is really. And so I know that it will be enduring. I know you're going to be using this. I think Diane should print a copy so she can mark it up and highlight what's been done and all that. But it's a beautiful plan. Thank you for taking my comments. The labels look great. Pass that along for me. And just really, really well done.
Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, I also just want to thank you for being so supportive of taking a pause to when this came about, Councilmember Aronson, because we were about to start building a building, and then we found out the whole area hadn't even had utilities marked and surveyed. So we really needed to say, take a pause. And Council, that was brave of you to do. It's easier in the instant moment to go ahead and approve a contract, go ahead and get it done. But if you recall, that cost us a little bit of time and money. And we paused and said, no, this isn't the right path. We need to have the vision first. And I really commend you, because a lot of electeds wouldn't do something like that. And it takes courage to say, yeah, let's get the vision right and then start implementing. That's the right path. And I commend you as well.
Thank you, Nancy. Jesse, did you have something you wanted to? Nope. Okay. Any other discussion or questions or a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve resolution 2027, a resolution of the town of Frisco, Colorado, adopting the comprehensive vision and project implementation plan for the Frisco Adventure Park at the Peninsula Recreation Area. You guys hear that?
Yep. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Fountain. Is there, and seconded by Councilmember Held. Any further discussion? Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Burley,
Yes.
Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diane. Moving on to old business. This will be agenda item number 3 in old business. This is second reading of ordinance 20-20, an ordinance levying general property taxes for the year 2020 to help defray the cost of government for the town of Frisco, Colorado for the 2021 budget year. I'll now open the public hearing, turn it over to staff, and Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, council. This is a second reading of the ordinance that is required to set the mill levy for the upcoming year. I won't spend much time on this. We've already had discussions on it. I told you how much this was going to generate. I will tell you that we did get another evaluation from the county, and it has changed a little bit. It's dropped about 330,000 from what they originally gave us. That amounts to pennies in the dollar amounts because we don't get very much anyway. It's about 190,000 that this generates. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Mayor and council, I also want to comment that although this is the second reading, at our next council meeting, we will be bringing a resolution to and a public hearing to formally adopt the budget. And at that time, but I want to make sure that there isn't any other changes to the budget that's been proposed. So we wanted to just pause here for a moment. Councilmember Fallon at our last meeting mentioned an analysis for talking about events and marketing. And I've met with the mayor and mayor pro tem, or virtually met. That's what I mean by meeting these days. And we discussed this at length along with staff about really making sure that the connection between your vision for the community and the decisions are made. And I've also communicated with most of you, and including Councilmember Fallon on this. So what we're going to do to address a council member's question about events and marketing is not a question as to whether or not an event should be done, whether or not we want to do a certain kind of marketing, because those questions can devolve into not linked to a vision purpose. That's the vision and our purpose on the community. We did not spend as much time this year in strategic planning on vision. We were going to have a lot of vision conversation, which was left off our strategic planning the previous year. It was left off because we wanted to just focus on getting things done for that first year. And then on that first really thorough strategic planning session. And then this year we were going to really have a lot of time on the visioning. Well, COVID affected our vision, blurred it a little bit. And now we want to get refocused. So we're going to bring in some vision conversation, probably some homework and things like that in December, probably a meeting in January to really make sure you're clear. What is the vision that you have for Frisco over the next 2 to 3, 5 years, the most clarity we can bring, and then agendize early February this discussion on events and marketing, and whether or not you want to do those things, it's whether or not they fit with your vision. A little bit more of a consistent process and making sure they link together. So next meeting on November 10th, you'll be presented the opportunity to adopt the budget with no changes unless there's changes here tonight. And then we'll work on visioning and then linking events, marketing, and actions to that vision. That makes sense?
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that, Nancy. Any specific questions for staff at this time before we go to public comment? Seeing none, I will open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment, please do so now. All right. I almost called on Bonnie M to make public comment because her mic was turned off, but she's already made her comment. So I will now close the public comment and back to council discussion and perhaps a motion. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and to keep this brief, Nancy, thanks for, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, thanks for, I appreciate the time you put in and what the summarization of that conversation. Look forward to establishing that rubric. I just want to be clear, in the absence of one existing, I'll substitute my own rubric and still be voting no. I just don't want to belabor the issue, and because I'm still where I was. For obvious reasons, we've had some good conversations with a lot of council people since then, and I look forward to that conversation in January and February. So just to be clear, and appreciate all the effort everybody's put into the hard work. This has been a challenging budgeting year, and you all have done a phenomenal job developing a wonderful document for the town. So I appreciate all the effort that went into it, and I do look forward to the next iteration of that coming up. So thanks for all your hard work. I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think it is a budget of great pride, knowing what we were up against and what we were thinking we were going to be doing. And a lot of hard work across the board shows in what this budget represents. So I do appreciate that. Any other comments or discussion or emotion?
Mayor, I'd make a motion.
Please.
Yes, I would make a motion towards to adopt the second reading for ordinance 2020, an ordinance levying general public property taxes for the year 2020 to help defray the cost of government for the town of Frisco, Colorado for the 2021 budget year.
Motion was made by Councilmember Held. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Aronson. Further discussion, call the question, please.
Certainly. Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Inkin,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4. This is the second reading of ordinance 20-21, appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amount and for the purpose as set forth below for the town of Frisco, Colorado for the 2021 budget year. I'll open the public hearing, turn it back over to staff and to Bonnie again.
Thank you again. Council, since this is a second reading, I will just do kind of an overview of all of the town's funds. And this is on page 5 of your staff memo, which was in last presented to you. The beginning fund balance for all of the town's funds is 33 million. Revenues we anticipate coming in at 21.5 million. We have operating expenditures of 16.5 million. This is all of the funds, not just the general fund. We have a small amount of debt service of about 885,000, and the majority of the costs other than operating expenses are capital projects at 12 million. Total expenditures are about 30 million, leaving a fund balance in all of the town's funds of almost 25 million at the end of the year. I will open it up for any questions or your discussion, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Any questions for Bonnie at this time? See no specific questions. I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please do so now. Seeing none, I will close public comment and back to council discussion, or perhaps a motion if there's no discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
moved.
I move. We got two?
Go ahead, Rick. You can
Go
have
ahead.
it.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 20-21, an ordinance approving sums of money for the various funds and spending agencies, the amount and for the purpose as set forth below for the town of Frisco, Colorado for the 2021 budget year.
Thank you. It was moved by Councilmember Incan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Burley. Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Held,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Fallon.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5. This is second reading of ordinance 20-22, an ordinance granting an easement to Public Service Company of Colorado for the purpose of providing electric service at Walter Byron Park and over that certain area known as Walter Byron Park Access Drive, and more particularly described herein. I will open up the public hearing and turn it over to staff and Jeff Goebel. Jeff, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I hope you all are well. This is second reading of ordinance 20-22, granting the easement to Xcel Energy to run the new power service to Walter Byron Park, which is in use as we speak. So there has been no changes since the first reading of this ordinance. I will take any questions and go from there.
Thank you, Jeff. Any specific questions for Jeff at this time? I will open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment? Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment and back to council discussion and perhaps a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion.
Please.
Yes, sir. I would make a motion to approve the second reading ordinance 2022, an ordinance granting an easement to Public Service Company of Colorado for the purpose of providing electric service at Walter Byron Park over that certain area known as Walter Byron Park Access Drive, and more particularly described herein.
It's been moved by Councilmember Held. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Councilmember Burley. Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Fallon,
Yes.
Held.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on
Thank you, everyone. Be well.
Thank you, Jeff, for all your hard work. It's awesome.
Appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number, sorry about that. Apologies. Agenda item number 6 is our continuing general discussion and action on the COVID-19 response. I will open up the hearing and turn it over to staff and Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A couple updates for you. I wanted to make sure that you're obviously fully aware of the new public health orders. There was a flurry of activity all last week, and we wanted to be, as a county, meaning collectively the towns in the county, wanted to be really in front of the growing number of increase in cases. I also want to commend our communications director, Vanessa Agee, for an outstanding notice to the public in terms of how she was able to explain the public health orders and what it means for us. Particularly like that. Don't we all know this? And don't we all know what we're supposed to do? We do, but not everybody does it. And as a result, the cases are increasing. Essentially, we have some case numbers that could put this county, along with a lot of other counties, back a level or two. But as long as we're demonstrating to the state that we're taking serious action and we can slow that number down, then we won't have a 14-day consistent number that could set us back. So the county called a number of quick meetings between all the managers, and we went over some proposed changes, agreed with where they were going, and agreed to also collectively step up enforcement. So we've met with the chief. I've talked to him a number of times. We've changed our CSO hours to, well, now they're working 2 p.m. to midnight so that they can go and visit restaurants. They're keeping track of the restaurants they're visiting. They're making sure people understand these orders, that there is social distancing required, masks are required, the protocols in terms of washing and all of that. We really all collectively throughout the county are stepping up enforcement. We're willing to ticket and fine people if they're not following the orders. You don't need an order to do any of these things at all. We're only having to support and agree with the county's orders because people aren't doing it. And county did a good job at really pointing out what the issue is. And the way they were able to figure it out is contract tracing. So the contract tracing demonstrates the real problem is locals, not tourists. That's a rumor that's out there. And it's the locals who are in restaurants, hanging out, bars being open and so on. And, you know, if you've had a drink or two, you're letting down your guard. So we all know that that's factual behavior. And so, of course, some of the protocols come down. So that's why you saw the new public health orders tighten that up. And some people misunderstood what was meant by the idea that at 10 p.m., you know, COVID is exploding versus 9 p.m. That's not the point. The point is the longer you stay and drink and stay up late, and the parties were happening. So really making an effort to clamp down on that. And employees hanging out in their place of work, particularly restaurants, that's where some of the cases were exploding. So you see that by all the new orders, gatherings have been almost prohibited pretty much. And we're taking as strong a step as we can. We're also doing that internally, and I just wanted to point that out for the public as well, that we're back to very limited numbers working in town hall. The sign-in sheet, we'll keep that to about 10 folks a day, and we're all staggered with when we'll be in the office. Public Works and Public Safety are still out there. Of course, they risk exposure. We understand that. And we're doing everything we can to put the messaging out. And of course, Vanessa is here and able to answer any questions about messaging. But our message is really follow the protocols. It works. People need to wear their masks, keep the distance. And we hope we don't have to take any stronger action. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. I think that covers it.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Anybody have specific questions about what Nancy's heard or discussed in managers' meetings? Or I would just weigh in on this a couple different things. One, I think for those who haven't seen it or haven't heard, the contact tracing phone applications are out for both Google and Apple phones. And I strongly encourage people to turn those on. I know people don't always trust the cell phone companies or the government, but it's a simple way for us to really closely track who's in contact with who in case we have outbreaks or you're in contact with someone who might be infected. It's simple. It's easy to do. There's lots of, just Google it. You can figure out how to do it on your phone, but amazingly helpful for us to help stem this surge that we're having right now and continue through the winter on a good path. So if you haven't done that, I strongly encourage you to do that. It just helps. And it's a serious point. The conversations I've been a part of and talking to other mayors and listening and talking to some of the county commissioners, we are definitely in a very, very dangerous part. And the best way I can describe to folks who don't understand why we're here is I pulled all of my colleagues and friends who've ever had an ACL injury while skiing and asked them when they had it happen and what run were they on. And every single person was on a green or blue run. And these are top-notch skiing locals, and it's because we let our guard down, and then they blow their knee and they're out for the season. And we are at that point right now. People have let their guard down, and we are about to community-wide jeopardize our ski season. And we cannot afford to do that. We have to start taking this seriously again and realize that the problem is us. It is all community. If you are tested in Summit County but don't live here, your test results don't count here. So all the testing results that you're seeing are from locals. And sadly, it is that 20 to 29-year-old group. So let's help spread the word. We all want our Thanksgivings to be as joyous as possible in the holiday season. And the time is right now where we can set the table for that and make this successful. And I think we have to push a strong message. I think all of us know how important it is. I know I feel like I'm preaching to you guys and I don't need to, but it's now or never. And that's what's really worrisome to me. So I appreciate all of you helping with that and taking it as seriously as we all have and continuing to push that message. And second, what Nancy said with Vanessa, she puts out amazingly easy to read and understand versions of what a community health order looks like. And I applaud that because that is not always easy because it continues to change and it's so confusing. So any other comments, questions, discussion around this, Melissa?
Yeah, well said, Hunter, Mr. Mayor. And, I think that we've got one event ahead of us, which is Halloween. And I know I've gotten some comments from community members. I live in a densely populated neighborhood with children that are just, really looking forward to Halloween. But Vanessa, could you share with us your plan for communicating how to celebrate Halloween safely in maybe less traditional ways? What are we doing as a town?
Oh, you're still muted.
Stupid Zoom. I mean, fabulous Zoom. I wonder if you could go as a Halloween costume in your house by yourself as a Zoom call. What would that look like? So we have messaging from the county because we all agreed that we would have messaging together. And we've already done a little bit of it, but we plan on doing a whole lot more this week to remind folks of some of the good ideas. The county put out a good blog about what you could do instead. And we'll actually be sending that messaging and some of the graphics that they did. They did some pretty good graphics to our HOA friends as well when we have those addresses, including the densely populated neighborhood that you were specifically discussing. And then we also have some really good imagery and messaging around Save Our Ski Season, because not everyone is going to want alternatives to trick-or-treating. Some people are just going to want to be motivated around making sure we save our ski season for their own delight, but also for our economy. So it's in the next few days, it's going to be hitting that incredibly hard.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Dan, please go ahead.
To kind of follow up on an aspect of that, and I really want to acknowledge and applaud the Department of Public Health here for really sticking to their guns. It appears they are working so hard on utilizing contact tracing, testing, isolation, and focusing on isolated outbreaks, and doing everything they can to avoid having to move to a more draconian approach community-wide to control, this surge. And I want people to appreciate the effort and the forethought and the experience that they're applying from what happened in the spring when we all lobbied so hard for exactly this. And we lobbied so hard to say, give us the chance. We're responsible business owners. We're a responsible community. We understand what's in our best interest. Do this. And they're doing it. And we really need to do our part and recognize that this is an intelligent way to approach this. And we can do it. But we all have to do it together. Individually, it's so easy to think that, again, each individual raindrop's not responsible for the flood. One of my favorite sayings, to think that, we don't individually, it doesn't come down to us, but it does come down to us individually. So please spread the word, reinforce this where you can. And thanks and kudos to the health department for working so hard to reinforcing this ethos with us. And I know we can do it. We can pull this off.
Well said, Dan. Thank you. I totally agree. Any other comments? Also just say, if you're not feeling well, don't go out. Stay home for any and every reason. And if there's no other comments, as this is just a general discussion, I think we can conclude this agenda item and perhaps a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, since I missed council comment, I just wanted to put something out there that hopefully we can revisit again in early 2021. And you may see a story in the Summit Daily about how the county recently, and forgive me because I just kind of glanced at the highlights, but they're moving towards more sustainable investing with their dollars. And we've had this conversation and got a little bit of education on this a while ago, but then we kind of left it there. And I think that it's really time for us to buckle down and look at where we are investing our dollars, and then also providing opportunities for our employees to invest in retirement products that support sustainability initiatives, clean energy. They call it ESG investing. And so I just thought it was timely because the county recently took this on, and we've had initial conversations about it. And I think it's time that we really revisit it and start putting our money where our mouth is. So with that, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay well. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Dad, thanks for working through the technology issues. For all the names on here I don't recognize, and the team behind the scenes, and Deborah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Bye, Thad. I saw you there.